Hi everybody! In this tutorial for the Photobella design team, I'm going to show you how to use molds and clay to decorate a wine bottle. So first I'm using this Damperia extra light white soft clay, and the first mold that I just used was a deep impression mold. So I left my piece in there until it dries, and I'll pop it out once it is dry after about 24 hours. The mold that I'm using now is a silicone mold from Prima, and it allows the pieces to pop out once I've formed them. So I am just taking small pieces of the clay, pushing it into the mold, and then taking out some of the excess, trying to make the back as flat as possible. They don't have to be completely flat because these will be around a wine bottle, but I don't want to have any excess on there that I don't need. So I'm just slowly shaping the pieces and then prying them out of the molds. This next mold that I will be using is a mold from Stamperia Amazonia collection, and it is a very shallow mold. It's a texture mold, so I am just adding a little bit of the clay around this mold where the flowers are. So you'll see me shaping into the mold, and then I will be scraping off the excess so that the backs are flat, and then I'll turn the mold over from the front side so I can see where the excess is. I don't want there to be any hanging over the actual shape itself, and because the mold is so shallow, it's really hard to tell from the back side where the mold ends and the extra piece from the background begins. These molds are not typically used in this fashion, but you can use them this way with a little bit of patience. I allowed my mold to dry overnight, and now I'm popping the pieces out. So what you'll see is they're very thin and they're actually pretty delicate. This is my first time using this type of clay, and it's very soft, so it's very easy to break. So you want to be really careful when you're handling all of the different pieces because they will break pretty easily. Now I'll be using another one of those shallow molds, but I'm going to be doing it a little bit differently. So I have my wine bottle, I've covered it in clear gesso and allowed it to dry. Now I'm taking the clay and I'm shaping it around my bottle. It doesn't have to be smooth during this step because I'm going to use the impression mold to make impressions in the clay. So right now I'm only focused on covering the bottle, and I'm only covering a portion of it to see how this works before I cover the remaining part of the bottle. Once I have my clay around my bottle, next I'm actually going to use my impression, and I'm going to curve it around the bottle and shape it so that the impressions from the mold are left in the clay. So I'm pressing pretty firmly, but not too firmly where it pushes all the clay out and I'm reaching the bottom of the bottle. So you'll see a lot of the texture that's created in this manner. Now you'll see that I've covered the entire part of the bottle that was uncovered. And next I'm just going to be placing the mold at various portions around the bottle just to give it impressions. Once I see some spots that are bare, I will use pieces of the impression just to form texture throughout the entire part of the bottle. Now I'm adding just a little bit more clay around the top of the bottle. My bottle is shaped like a cat and I don't want to cover the face, but I do want the rest of the bottle to be covered. So I'm carefully going around the top of the bottle, adding more clay, and then I'll be using the impression mold around it like I did with the bottom of the bottle. So I'll repeat this process until I have my bottle completely covered with clay the way I want it to look. Now that my bottle is completely covered in clay, I let it dry overnight before going to the next step. And here I'm going to start covering the entire surface of the bottle with heavy black gesso. I'm using black gesso because I want my bottle to have darker colors, so if you want a lighter look to your bottle, you can go ahead and use heavy white gesso instead. For this step, make sure that you cover the entire surface of the bottle. This includes all of the clay that was just placed on the bottle, as well as any glass pieces if you left any of it uncovered like I did. This will allow us to have a nice surface to begin adding our paints and other mixed media products to, so that it adheres well to the glass of the bottle and to the clay. Next comes the fun part of the project. We're going to start adding different colors to the surface using different types of paints. So here I'm using a light green that won't really be seen at the end of the project, but I'm using it because I want to be able to see where the texture is in the patterns in my clay. So I'm using a stiff bristled brush here for this step, and in a way I'm dry brushing the paint onto my bottle. So there's not a lot of paint. It's going to allow me to just get into the surface and a little bit into the grooves, but not too much. So I'm going to go around the entire bottle first with the light green color just to allow the texture to pop out before I start adding the colors to the bottle. Using the same technique and brush, I will begin adding different colors to my bottle, one color at a time. So I am starting with a metallic blue color that I will start adding throughout my bottle. I'm just going around in different parts of the patterns, adding the paint in, and I'll come back later and touch this up because the colors will be completely different by the time I'm finished adding the different layers of paint. So I'm just going around the bottle, very carefully adding my paint in. Obviously the video is sped up much quicker than how I did this project, so as you are doing this, make sure that you take your time with this step so that it applies nice and evenly, but not too much paint where it loses the texture. And next I'll be adding a metallic green color to my bottle. So again, just like with the blue, I'm going around the bottle in small sections, just adding the green to different surface areas. Some of the grooves will have green in it, it'll blend with some of the blue, and it'll help to have some of the patterns stand out because they'll have multiple colors. Again, working slowly around your bottle, just go ahead and add some paint, and it's better to add paint very slowly in multiple layers than it is to add too much paint and have to go back and redo it. Now I will be adding a metallic magenta color to my bottle. When I use this color, it will blend with the other colors to form a soft purpley color, but then on other areas it'll be pretty metallic on its own. So I'll have a pinkish color and a purplish color once my bottle is finished. Before doing this step, I made sure that my other two colors were dry so that it didn't blend too much together. And again, I'm adding layers very carefully and then going back and adding more to the different places in the bottle that I want more color. Now I will be going back through with my blue and my green just to touch up some places and soften some of the pinks and purples that I've added to the bottle. Any areas that don't have paint, I might add some additional paint, or areas that I want to stand out, I will hit again with that particular color. Next, I will be using Nouveau Mousse in a silver color just to allow the colors to pop out. Adding this light color on top of the darker colors will really allow the texture to pop and stand out from the designs. You don't want to use too much because it will mute everything and it won't look as good, but you want to go through just adding this one piece at a time. I prefer to use my finger and dust it over because I can feel those ridges and edges where the clay is, and that helps me to know where to place the color. Now I'm going to be adding a layer of gold gel. This is by Stamperia, and I'm using the brush to brush this on. It's really liquidy, and it is a shimmery paint that has gold metallic flecks in it, so it's going to allow the finished product to sparkle and shine. So again, I am using a dry brush technique to do this, so I am using just a little tiny bit at a time, highlighting the surface of the top of the ridges just so that I have some more dimension that pops out from the rest of the texture. For the surface of my bottle that is not covered by clay, I am adding a light layer of this gold gel over the surface just to allow it to sparkle. So my entire face of my cat will have that gold sparkly on it just to allow some of the features to stand out. Once my bottle is completely dry, I will also be adding different elements from the molds using the same exact process here. So I've colored each of my mold pieces using the same exact process with the colors, and then I have adhered them onto my bottle using a smooth gloss gel so that they are nice and adhered. Finally, I did spray my entire bottle with glossy Mod Podge so that it is shiny and makes all the colors pop. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial for Photobella, and if you need any of these mixed media products, don't forget to check out the Photobella online store. Thank you and have a great day.